I saw an amazing trailer for the film that I think I'd seen a little sneak peek of it on Instagram or something like that, which is called Asteroid City, and it's the new film by Wes Anderson, who I've not seen a lot of his films, but I've seen the Royal Tenenbaums, which I really like, and Fantastic Mr. Fox as well, the which is an animated thing. Have you seen that?
No, when you said Wes Anderson, I thought horror movies, but that's Wes Craven, isn't it?
That's Wes Craven. No, completely different.
Are they related?
Wes Anderson does really weird, not really. They're films that are sort of set in the modern day, but they look slightly retro. He's got a very distinct sort of style to him. But this what caught my eye with this film. One, it's his. I enjoyed the films he does, but it's about this little small town. It appears by in the trailer that it's called Asteroid City, and they have a day when they celebrate, sort of the city as such. And it seems by in the trailer on that particular day, and aliens come down. There's like a spaceship that comes down and sort of greet them in it. So yeah, it looks really interesting. I think it's coming out on cinema relatively soon. But when you've seen the trailer, and I do recommend anyone to watch the trailer to see what it's like, the amount of it's just like spot the famous actor basically in it. Just to look, I've got IMDb up now. So starting at the top, you've got Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Tilda Swinton, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Adrian Brody, Maya Hawke, who's made a very good name for herself in Stranger Things, Ethan Hawke's daughter, that is, Steve Carell, Matt Dillon, Margot Robbie, and William Dafoe.
Blimey. So there's a certain, I don't want to kind of pigeonhole them, but they are sort of, there's a few in there that are kind of seasoned actors, I would say.
Definitely. And that's the thing, looking at the trailer, it's not there, and this is very much a thing of a Wes Anderson film. They're playing very strong characters as such. Like Steve Carell, when you see Steve Carell in the trailer, it's not a case of, oh, there's Steve Carell. It's you see this weird character and you think, that's Steve Carell. Yeah, exactly. It's quite.
It was a bit like that when we watched. I can't remember if you nipped to the loo when we were in the cinema watching Guardians, but when the Oppenheimer trailer came on,
I think I did miss the trailer.
So I'd already seen that trailer on YouTube or wherever, and there's a bit at the end that I had to do like a double take and then take it back because you see Robert Downey Jr. in it.
Yes, I was sitting there for that. Yeah,
but you kind of go, was that Robert Downey Jr.? And because he looks so different, I think every time I think of him, I just think of Tony Stark. So obviously him looking completely different. Plus with the style that they're doing Oppenheimer in, with it, certain bits being black and white and so forth.
I think that's going to be an amazing film. However, it's a bit of a tough subject. Do you know what I mean? Like, the guy that invented the atomic bomb, essentially, I think is the plot line of it and sort of all the events surrounding it. So
the only thing I would say is for the younger generation, and I include myself in that.
Hanging on.
I don't know a great deal about it. No, so actually, it'd be quite interesting. It's a bit like I went to see the musical Six last week, which
What's that?
Six, which is about the 6 wives of Henry VIII.
Oh right.
But it's like a modern twist on it. And it's them all each telling their own story. And I actually sat back and went, I didn't know about that. And it was quite interesting, although there was a lot of comedy in it. And some people have said it's quite woke. Get on. But I loved it. But again, going back to the case in point, Oppenheimer, I don't know a great deal about the story behind it. So finding out, I know about atomic bombs. Not literally. I'm not building one or making one in my back garden, but it'd just be interesting to hear about it. But speaking of making things, I did see a story on Wired in the last few days that Dyson are actually finally releasing their Dyson air purifier with headphones.
I don't know if I've seen the Dyson one, but there are a few of those weird sort of.
Yeah. And it made me laugh because I think on the thing it was like the article read something like Dyson finally releasing air purifying headphones, but don't buy them because they look awful. You look, and hopefully you'll be able to throw up a picture. It magically appears on the screen right now, but they look awful. It looks like a mixture of RoboCop and I don't know, some weird sort of villain from a superhero movie, but. What's the point? I mean, is it that bad?
Or,
I mean, this
what it
long.
reminds me of is I don't quite know how to explain it. When there's like a James Bond film or whatever, and they have to swim underwater, but they haven't got a full mask. They like just put a thing on.
Yeah,
that's sort of what it reminds me of.
Yeah,
But
I get that.
guess like, do you? Like now, I think a lot of these things, and I'm sure the company Razer, who do like gaming stuff, I'm sure they had a similar sort of thing. But it was all around COVID, where people were very focused on, masks and that sort of stuff. Is there a demand for that sort of thing now?
When you imagine with it being Dyson or whoever the brand is, it's not going to be cheap.
No.
I mean, I don't know what they're retailing at, but yeah, you're right. I think, is there going to be demand? Stick a little material mask on me if you have to go down that road again. But it's
overkill. It feels like
it's going to be one of them things, and I'm sure there's been loads in our lifetime where there's been an idea, and we think it's going to, and it is just a matter of whether it takes off or not, isn't it? I mean. We've talked about mini discs before. I think that had a bit of longevity, but then MP3 came around and it kind of wiped that out.
Yeah.
I can't see how this air purifying thing is gonna. And didn't Dyson make the kind of air purifying fans and things like that? Because I'm sure my brother's got one of them, but.
Yeah, they did. They've made fans. They've obviously made the vacuum cleaners. They've done hairstyling stuff, so like hair dryers, haven't they, and like tongs, I think. So there's quite a few different things now.
I mean, now we're talking about hair drying things. I saw an advert the other day that Shark, who do vacuums, same as Dyson.
I've got a Shark vacuum cleaner.
I've got a Shark vacuum, but they're now doing like this multi-functioning hair dryer, curling. I mean, not that I've got nothing you're saying, but it's.
I'll get it for that bit.
Give it a little curl. But it's like this. If anyone's got a Shark Hoover, it can bend and go under small things. You don't have to bend that. I think that's the idea. It literally looks like a stick, like a 90-degree angle. Or is that 45? I can't remember. No, it's 90.
No, it's 90.
and literally, you can shape it into whatever you want it to do. I mean, it's like watching blooming Transformers. There was also, did you hear? I'm moving on to another subject now. That's what I heard on the radio. It was about, in America, they were saying about AI and how we're getting to a point now where it's getting a bit out of control, that it may go rogue. Did you read about this or hear about this?
Yeah, that's the.
It was like brought up in.
Weren't it worried like about?
Yeah.
Personally, I love AI. I get their worries with these things. Yeah, fair enough. But I think that with like Mid-Journey, which I've talked about on here before, the pictures, and I hope to share some on Instagram soon, I've been trying to create. The level of pictures you can create now, like if it feels like every week it's getting better and better and better and better because it's learning. But like Chat GPT, which is like the main thing that people are using or have access to with AI, I think the best way to think of it is it replaces Google. And that's why like companies like Google are so worried about it, because you can literally type in, how do I do whatever, like literally anything, like how do I
a podcast,
how do I do a podcast? You could ask it, and it would say, well, definitely do it, don't do it with two middle-aged men and talk about Lego and beer And other than that, you'll be fine. It will probably say something like that. But in all seriousness, I asked it recently. I haven't done this yet. How do I program an application that merges two MP3 files together? And it told me how to do it. It's just, oh, you do this and you do that. And then if you've got a question, like rather, if you Googled that, you'd get a web page or you'd get a YouTube video or whatever. But it brought up a load of stuff for me. And then I read it and was unsure about bits. So I just say, oh, about this bit, I'm not quite sure. Can you explain that in more detail? Oh, not a problem. Let me explain that in more detail. And it goes through. So it talks to you. The best example I have of where this seems to be going is if you've watched the film Her, where he's got his personal assistant and he talks to it and he's, how do I do this, or where's the best place to go, or whatever. And it's to the extreme in that film, but that's exactly what it's like. It's taking all the information in the world and putting it in basically an interface where you can talk to it rather than just a paid search. It's just, it organizes it for you, which is phenomenal.
It's mental. And funnily enough, I was at a networking event not that long ago where I was chatting to this woman who she runs her own kind of business. And she was talking about it, and I thought, this is weird that she's talking about Chat GPT. And she said she uses it for all of her like LinkedIn posts. This was the best one. Titles for an email.
Yeah.
And she said, that's the bit that's going to get someone to look at it. And she said, and I can take that and then edit it and rearrange it and simplify it or whatever I want to do. But just giving that, and we've used it before live on the show. And
it's a second opinion.
Yeah.
But it's a second opinion, the same way I would ask you at work, I've written this email, can you have a look at it? And we've done that 1,000 times. Can you just read through this to make sure this is okay? You can do that, but instead of it based on it's like just your single experience, it's based on the world's experience.
It's mental.
Which is pretty crazy. And the other thing I saw, you can upload a CSV file, which is like an Excel document file with information on there, and you say to it, it will say, oh, I see you've uploaded a CSV file. What do you want me to do? Type in, can you give me, please make a chart based on blah, 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 and blah, 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 and tell me the best way to do whatever. And it works it out. Like, it'll calculate all the data for you.
So you almost don't need to be experts at that sort of thing anymore.
And that's the thing. It does. It takes the barrier of entry away from most things. But I think a lot of people are concerned that it's going to take their jobs, because there are a lot of jobs that, if you think of like photographers and stuff like that with Midjourney, it could, like stock pictures that we've used in the podcast and stuff like that. I want a picture of a beach on a sunny day with some palm trees. Bang.
Mate, I know exactly what you mean, because there was a post I saw the other day which was here are, using Midjourney, here are 4 designs for Old Trafford if it was to be renovated or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were each unique in their own way, but looked stunning. I mean, you think it takes designers and graphics engineers and things like that to probably ages to make these sort of things, and they can just go
done. There's no idea.
Mate, I think our podcasting careers might be at risk here.